Well, there you are again, Charlie Greer podcast. I do this every day today. So I was a teenage pool hustler. What? Yep. Before we start, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, which you do, the information's in the description. For Cash App, my handle is Charlie Greer Podcast. And then for Zelle, it's my email. My email's in the description. Let's do this. So I was a teenage pool hustler. Yep. Loved it. Awesome. I grew up around playing pool. My dad was, he'd take me to the pool hall. Supposedly I wasn't allowed to be in, it was a small town. So I was related to the guy who owned the pool hall. It's what it is. My dad was a pool hustler. I mean, like really good, to the point where they wouldn't let him in the tournaments anymore. He'd won so much. And I got my first stick, like with a case and everything, my first billiard stick. When I was probably 8, 9, 10, I was good. By the time I was 15, 16, 17, well, I beat adults, grown men. In fact, they got around. I couldn't play. They knew. And technically, I wasn't playing billiards. See, there's a thing. See, billiards, real billiards, people don't play anymore. That's just a table with no holes, and people don't play billiards. What mine was straight 8-ball, 9-ball, and snooker. 8-ball is just 8-ball, 9-ball is 9-ball. Snooker's a little bit more complicated, sophisticated. The tables are bigger, the balls are smaller, and the holes are smaller. And you got to take score. There's red balls and numbered balls. So you got to make it a red ball so you can hit in a numbered ball. And you want to do as many high numbered balls as you can. You're keeping score. Then once all the red balls are sunk, then you got to do all the numbered balls in order. It takes a long time. A good game of snooker might take 2-3 hours. Shit. I used to play snooker. You get bored. A lot of times, there's been a lot of games where we both, didn't matter who was winning. It's like, man, fuck this. Let's go let's go cruise the strip or go get some food. After about an hour and a half, you're like, shit. So I was a teenage pool hustler. And technically, you're not supposed to gamble in the pool hall. Ain't no gambling in the pool hall. Well, see, there is. It isn't. Again, it's a couple $1, $2. It's not that you're gambling. It's not like and there's different ways you can every game I win $5 or whatever. I had my own little. So this is what happens. You have to. Someone has the run of the table, they call it. So whoever's playing there has the run. It's his rules. He can either do 9-ball, 8-ball. He can't play snooker on a regular table. So either 9-ball, 8-ball. So you have to beat them. So then you can run the table and do your rules, gambling, whatever. And when I was about 15, I started doing this where I would. So my thing was, didn't matter if it was 8-ball or 9-ball. Every ball that I leave of yours on the table or whatever, I get $2 or $3. Sometimes it was 2, sometimes it was 3. I usually played straight 8-ball. I could do the same with the 9-ball because I could sink that 9-ball. Combo shot, bam, you owe me how many balls are left on the table? Well, there you go. If they were older dudes, I ain't paying you, Greer, you son of a bitch. That been more about you. Like, okay, fine. Just don't lay a hand on me. My grandfather will, or my cousins or something. So that's what I would do. I would literally, say on a Friday night or a Saturday night, I'd have my friends, we go to the lake or wherever during the day, go home, shower. I'd either have my dad or my friend drop me off at the pool hall or the Steak and Shake, or wherever there was. There was a couple places you could play pool. Sometimes you had to be careful. Sometimes, sometimes they'd be like, hey, man, the heat is on. We can't be doing, or you're underage, sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. So I'd have them drop me off. I'd go early, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, hustle for, I know it sounds horrible, for a couple hours to That's what I did. That was my job. That's how I got spending money. That's how I got, like, to buy. Well, I hate to admit it, but I was smoking by then and underage drinking. Yeah, I know this sounds bad. Food too, and just like everything, clothing. You're a teenager. Concert tickets and cassettes and what. That's how I do it. And my goal was to make around only 20 or 30 bucks, and I would go. That's it. Just enough for the nights. Stuff was cheap back then, so just enough for the night's activities, if you will. That was a thing for years. That's what I would do. Like, my friends had like allowances, and they were, my family was pretty, my dad had been a doctor by then. He'd retired. He was ill. And he would give me a little allowance, but I needed more. I need. And so that's what I would do. And I'm not trying to brag, but my dad taught me this because he would do it. Because he was known. Again, he would, ZDG, don't play. He wasn't allowed to play in these tournaments because he'd won so much. And he wasn't the only one. There was dudes that were known that were like, there were some guys that were awesome. They would travel. If I would recommend watching The Hustler with Paul Newman and Piper Laurie and Jackie Gleason. It's an awesome movie. It's called The Hustler. Matter of fact, I watched it not too long ago. It's free on YouTube. The Hustler, Paul Newman. Check it out. It's a black and white film. George C. Scott's in it. Piper Laurie's amazing in it. It's kind of a dark story, but it's not too dark. It was shot like in 1961. But for the time, it was, and multiple Piper Laurie steals the show. Jackie Gleason steals it. Paul Newton and George C. Scott. It's an awesome movie. One of my favorites. But I didn't really hustle like that. I wasn't like a traveling pool hustler, right? Again, it was just for my spending money. But my dad taught me how to like play with one arm. Like, hey, if these guys just like, I'll play with one hand, one arm. And I did, and I'd win. But I'd spent so much time in the pool hall. I had my own pool sticks, multiple pool sticks. I had good pool sticks, and I was good. Besides my guitar, that's what I love. Pool. I would stay at the pool till they let me. You got to get out of here. It's too late. You got to go to school. And my dad was usually at the pool hall. I mean, that's what he did. And granted, he'd been a doctor. And once he got sick or whatever, he would just go hang out the pool hall. All his friends were there. That's what the goings-ons were. No girls allowed in the pool hall. I mean, I went back in the 90s after I moved, and I went back to this small town I'm from. I told these, girls I knew, I was like, hey, meet me at the pool hall and everything. And then they were outside, like knocking on the window, like, well, come on in. And I remember, what's his name? The girls ain't allowed in the pool hall. I'm like, are you kidding, man? It's in the 90s. What? See? No, they can't. Some things don't change. Okay. Fine. No drinking in the pool hall. You know what I mean? There's rules. People used to keep their booze, like the older guys, in their car or around the corner, their beer, whatever they were. And I was known. I mean, it was like a thing, and people would bet on you. They would bet, and I'd get a little pinch of that too. And it was like a thing. Like, hey, I was probably the best young pool player around. And people would come around and be like, hey, man, I heard you. Okay, fine, let's go. And I'd smoke them. Because I would, at night, I wouldn't have to pay sometimes. I would just do the break and try to sink the 8-ball or the 9-ball. And I would do that hundreds of times. After a while, you get good. You have to hit it at the angle. You got to know, not every time, but I would do it. Sink the 8-ball. Bam, game over. You owe me how much? What's left? There you go. Every ball on the table, you owe me $2 or $3. That was my thing. Sometimes it'd be 2. Sometimes like, oh man, okay, what's the rules? Okay, every ball I leave of yours, or every ball on the table that's left, and I win, you owe me $2. I'd usually start with $3 a ball. Fine. Or like, no, not 3, man. Like, come on, 2. Okay, 2. I would never do 1. Sometimes I would, like, fine, 1 to, because I wanted to get in and out. Again, I wanted to make about $20-$30. And I never made a lot of money. Like sometimes, like if I did a good night, I'd make like 60, 70, 80, 90. It wasn't like, sometimes I'd made over 100, but it wasn't like I was, again, $20-$30 gone. If I could make $20-$30 in 20 minutes, I'd be leaving. I didn't want to, Just wanted spending money. But I got caught, and I um, had to stop doing it. Of course, I was dumb. I shouldn't have. Well, I skipped school, played hooky, and skipped school, played hooky. Um, Went to the I gotta say where I went, but it wasn't the regular pool hall. It was like another little smaller one. And I knew who owned it. Um, and he was new in town, and I actually dated his daughter. And I don't know why he did, Anyway, there were older guys there hustling pool. So when I got there, it was their rules. This dude was at the table. It was his rules. So I had to beat him first. Then I could do so. I beat him. And then I had the run of the table. And so again, it's like $3 a ball, and I was doing pretty good. I'd made probably like 40, 50 bucks. Then out of the fucking blue, here comes the cops coming. Pardon me. Shit. Greer, like, I already knew someone snitched me out because I already knew what was going on. Usually they'd pull up. You'd see them pull up so you could stop what you're doing, pull it, because you have to put the money on the tape. Anyway, who would snitch us out, And they were wanting me. These older guys, they were gambling too, but no, they were, And I knew these cops, and they knew my dad, and they knew my grandparents, and their grandparents knew each other, and this, that, it's a small town, So at first they were like, yeah, but the owner wasn't around. And see, this dude had just moved to town. He wasn't, I don't even think from the South. I think they came from somewhere else. Came with a little bit of money to a small town, bought, a business and a house. And he was like, peacocking around, and people were like, where's he? I knew something was up. I was like, wait a minute. Why isn't the owner here? Where is it? What's going on? The cops are on me. We're going to drive you home to your grandmother, and tell her, Auntie Ruth, we're going to tell her that it's like, oh man, don't tell my She was actually kind of cool about it. I mean, she scolded me. She's like, well, you weren't, you should be skipping school. I didn't get grounded or anything. She just kind of scolded me, and that was it. You want some food? I made some pork chops and cornbread. Matter of fact, that night, I think I was at the pool hall, the real pool hall. Not gambling, but like, so they did me a solid. So they let me keep the money. They got me in the car, and then first we were standing outside the car in the parking lot there, and they told me what was up. They're like, hey man, this dude, you think he's your friend, the guy that owns this, he snitched you out. He called us, and they're like, look, we would not bug you. We got bigger fish to fry. We know, whatever. They were kind of pissed, but they had to do their job since they called the deputy. They had to be sent, they people are told what to do. The cops like, we usually wouldn't do this. We have to do it. So we're not going to keep your money. We won't say, we'll take you home. We'll talk to your grandparents. You're underage. I think I was like 16, maybe 17, 15. I don't even remember. I was like, thanks, man. You did me a solid. And they were pissed at this dude. For one, everybody hates a snitch. And two, they didn't like him coming around town, whatever he was into. Because I didn't really understand those politics, local thing. I didn't understand it yet. I didn't understand it, like, especially in a hillbilly town. Like, you think you're coming down from wherever you're from, and we get that. They don't like that. And he had bought out the other owner, who was super cool. And he had to be somebody had to make an example out of him. I know how bad that sounds. It didn't involve me, but they told me these are. I shouldn't say this, but. They're like, yeah, man, he'll get his. You snitch. I mean, these are the cops telling me. They didn't like it. They had to do what they had to do. But they didn't arrest me. Took me home. And then what got out that he had snitched. And then he it was obvious because his daughter, who I dated, she wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't. He was friendly. See, that's the thing. That day, he was friendly with me. And I don't even know why he would snitch me out like that. He would think he'd have enough common sense to know it's a small town. I was a popular kid. My family was my grandparents owned a restaurant, so everybody knew it was closed by then. But they were friends with everybody, and you're an outsider, and you'd only been here not even a year or something, and you're going to be snitching out a look. No, nuh-uh. Everybody hates a snitch, especially when you're like creating problems. Like, why didn't you let he would have been again? They kind of knew he would have been gone in an hour. Me talking about me. He's just, again, like petty. It's not even petty crime. It's just like playing pool and making 20, 30. But is that a crime? I guess so. But we weren't doing anything. I wasn't drinking or doing drugs. None of that. I wasn't doing violence or anything. I was just pool hustling. Shit. This was the 80s too, man. Come on. Well, it got out that he had everybody knew. And I had some really rough big cousins. These motherfuckers, you don't want to they're looking for something to I'll stop a mud hole here. No. This kind of, and everybody thought, like, why would he do that? Why would he who else has he snitched out? Because see, something had been going on where they knew somebody had been snitching. And they were like, didn't know who it. Well, then now, even if he didn't or not, that now he must be the snitch. On petty things, it didn't like anybody drug dealing or whatever the hell. When I was underage, I mean, wouldn't you snitch out an underage kid? Yeah, I guess you're gonna. Well, he I don't know what happened, but he moved. He bought a house and a business, and he in a year or so, he was gone. They probably brought the hammer down on him legally. Like he was probably doing things that he didn't. And then they, start pulling him over or this, that, and yeah, whatever. I don't know what it was. I didn't care. And those were good times besides being snitched out by somebody. I thought he was cool. Well, I was friendly with him. And quite honestly, we're spending money in his establishment, meaning we're putting quarters in that pool table, to put quarters in, and we're buying like hamburgers and French fries and Coca-Colas, and there was a cigarette machine there, which I probably shouldn't have been buying cigarettes, but I was. We're all making him money. And then it dried up. Like people knew. For one, I quit going there. And there used to be cars there. None of that. None of that. Maybe that's why he sold and left, because he that's what they did. They didn't do anything to him besides cut him off. Just not like didn't give him business. You know what I mean? It's a small town. You're gonna need a lot. Nah, you're not gonna. Everybody hates a snitch. Hillbillies hate snitches, man. Okay? Even the cops hate a snitch. And these are good people, meaning like local people. Like, yeah, they're bad. There's bad people out and about, but I wasn't a bad kid, meaning I wasn't drinking and driving. I wasn't doing drugs. And sometimes I had long hair. Sometimes people like speculate and think that you're doing more. Yeah, it wasn't, man. It was, we all experimented with certain things. We'd smoke a little grass, and we were underage drink. We'd have beer. We weren't like, I'm talking about? Like we were doing what teenagers do in the 80s. And we weren't even that bad. We'd go to Nashville to concerts, and these other underage shit, you should see what they're doing. And we also did like odd jobs. We'd work for people and this and that, mow lawns and babysit. You know what I mean? When you're a teenager and you're trying to, we weren't bad. I know shit. I've seen, we weren't doing any of that. No stealing, none of that, man. I'd go to church with my grandma, and I'd help my grandparents out, and this, that, and the other thing. I had chores to do, and I'd go to school. I'd go to school every once in a while. I skipped school, and I don't even know why I did that. It was a rainy day. I just remember that, like, I'm gonna skip school and go play pool and make some money. I might have wanted to like get a T-shirt, a concert T-shirt, or an album I wanted, or there was tickets for a concert I wanted. That's why I was doing it. It wasn't anything nefarious. I wasn't doing it to buy booze or drugs or none of that. I was just doing it to do like teenage stuff in the 80s. Like, hey, there's a concert coming up. I want to go to the concert. I want to be able to buy a T-shirt. I want to, eat, be able to go to McDonald's or whatever. Fun times. It did get to the point, by the time I was like 17, it was hard for me to find a game because people knew that I'd beat them. I would, but I never hustled, meaning I never went into a place and act like I couldn't play and like lose a few games and then raise the, the betting and then smoke everybody and take their money. Never did that. It's a complicated hustle game in the pool. Watch The Hustler, with Paul Newman and Jackie Gleason and Piper Laurie and George C. Scott. It's awesome. There are pool hustlers. They made good money. They would travel around state to state. They'd get known. You'd be known as a well, you better be careful. They don't like a professional pool hustler. So it wasn't that. It wasn't like I was like, oh, none of that. We're putting money in the jukebox. This is when people had jukebox. I was spending money. Most of that money would have probably been spent there. I'd ordered a cheeseburger and fries and a Coke, bought some cigarettes, spent money playing. To make money, you got to spend money, putting quarters into the jukebox and, commerce. It's capitalism. You know what I mean? I should have been, I was a go-getter. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. And then to be snitched out. I remember how bad my gut felt when they told me, because I thought this guy, and at first I was like, I didn't believe him. I was like, no, man. And then I was ostracized. Like, it was definitely him. Because I did try to go back and talk to, like, hey, what happened? And he, no. And again, it got out. It's a small town. There's 2,000 people in the town. And a lot of people are religious and this, that, and the other. And I had a bad reputation for just mostly having long hair, being a rock and roller. It wasn't like I was doing anything bad. Mostly was playing guitar after school. And of course, I'd smoke cigarettes. I mean, I was a teenager in the 80s. But there were people that were doing bad things, robbing people and doing drugs. We also experimented with drugs. I knew right away. I was like, man, I don't like this. I don't like to be out of my mind. I'll stick with like drinking beer, maybe some grass. That's it. We weren't like, and I never had any grass. I never had any weed. It was out and about. And you can ask me if they're around. I never had any. It was just like, it wasn't like I was hiding in my room or none of that. If it was available, if I was at a party, I'd smoke some grass. I didn't wasn't selling any of that stuff. And there were people there were rich kids that were drug dealers. I wouldn't, and they were, oh, he's so good. He's a drug dealer, a teenage drug dealer. I wasn't doing that. But it taught me a lesson. I've had pool sticks swung at my head. This was after the fact because I quit playing. That was the thing. Like I was kind of protected in that small town, so people knew better to, But when I moved away, and every once in a while, I'd be like, you know what, I'll go, play some pool, make some money. No, I learned right away. No, that layer of protection kind of kept me safe. I remember I was around here back in the day where I'm in the Midwest, and I had got to run on the table. I beat this guy. He was an older dude. He'd been drinking. We were in a bar. By then I was in my 20s and I won. I turned around. I felt he had swung he probably would have killed me if he hit me. Luckily he didn't, with the pool stick, the big end of the pool stick. And well, I didn't have to get involved. At the time I was in a band. I don't even remember. They beat the shit out of this dude. I didn't have to touch him. Like a big fight broke out, and in fact, I was saying, hey, leave him alone. I was trying to help the dude. They tried to kill me. But the good old days, those days are, I haven't played pool in forever. I love playing pool. I don't even own a stick. I used to have all kinds of expensive sticks, cases, really nice cases. And I miss a good game of pool, but nowadays, I don't even know shit. You wouldn't be, just for fun, I'd like to play pool. I've known people that would have pool tables at home. Let's play some pool. And they're like, oh, we know that. They're like, part of me, they didn't even care about the pool. I had a place, I was renting a room and there was a pool table. I was always playing pool and having people over playing pool. And they kind of like, what do you think? I'm like, this is your pool table. Look how nice this is. But no, I'm over it. I guess if you grew up with a pool table, you're just done. in LA, I'd go to people's houses or what, and there'd be a pool, and I would always go play pool. And people were like, "No, we couldn't find people to play." So I'd, try to, practice trick shots or whatever. Uh, I love pool. I wouldn't recommend being a teenage pool hustler though. That's tricky. Again, a small town. This was innocent times. You got to remember, man. It wasn't like anything, you know. Uh, I wasn't doing anything. Of course, yeah, I skipped school. You don't want to do that either. Yeah, I was gambling, but not really. I mean, you know, to me, it seemed like innocent and no big deal. But got snitched out, and had to deal with the law. Well, that's kind of why I had a bad reputation. Like, that gets around. And he got arrested. No, I didn't get arrested. You know, they just took me home to my grandmother, who was cool about it. She was just like, "Well, your kid, my grandfather didn't even give a shit. He was just like, leave him be. What the hell?" And my dad could care less. He knew that I was doing it. He didn't know I skipped school. But like, dude, he's like, "Dude, don't be skipping school. You should have known better." He's like, "Look, don't do, And I did. I learned my lesson. I never did it again. You live and learn. I tried. Hey, whatever. It's cool they let me keep the money. I need that money. Shit. Good times. I miss those times. I miss playing pool. I know there's a place here in town. I've went twice. There's like a pool hall here in town. It's dead. I don't even know how much it costs to play. I'm so out of whack. I don't even know if I could, I'd have to, I'm probably better than most people, but I haven't I used to play a lot. Almost every day I'd play pool. Every night, I should say. But yeah, I'd have to touch up my skills, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was a teenage pool hustler. What are you going to do? I mean, I'm trying to be honest on my podcast. Fun times, great times. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. That's the best way to support the channel. Just like, share, and subscribe. Just share it with your friends. Tell somebody. Who knows? Instagram, Twitter. I don't know. I don't do any of that. So if it helped me out, do it. If you do want to support the channel, the information's in the description for Cash App. My handle is charliegreerpodcast. And that'll go for getting like more better equipment. I don't know if I got hacked or something. Something's wrong with my computer. I can't. It's a mess. And in Zelle, in the description, there's information for Zelle. It's my email. You can figure it out. But I do this every day. I'll be back tomorrow. That's right. But I love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.